Hey guys, and welcome back to the Review for Few podcast. I'm your host Avi, and I don't have a guest host this week due to my very, very busy bee of a schedule. But I have a lot that I want to tell you about that I'm excited about. I've done so much research. I can't wait. It's the last episode for February, so I decided to give it my all. So we're gonna kick off with some facts, and these facts, they're based off of the show that we're talking about today, Woman in Movement, which you could stream on Hulu. If you don't know what I'm saying Hulu. And it's a very good show. You definitely have to watch at your own leisure, and I'll get into why. But the trial of Emmett Till, I don't want to say the trial because obviously he wasn't on trial, but that very unfortunate trial lasted 5 days, and the verdict was reached in 67 minutes. And it's quoted, I didn't write it here, but it's quoted that they would have had it sooner, but they got thirsty. Yeah. It's a little southern joke between racist white men back in the day. Yeah, I'm gonna try to keep my tone very uplifted and happy, but this show, the things I learned, I knew the basis of Emmett Till, but the things I learned, it's just, I on with the show. Something I found really interesting doing all my research was that on March 29, 2022, President Joe Biden signed the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, which made lynching a federal hate crime. So, yay, like almost 60 something years later, right? Because Emmett Till was, this took place in like mid 1950s. So it's like, oh, it's really sad. I didn't realize while doing this, I didn't realize how that was not that long ago. Like it was not that long ago. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but let's keep it pushing, you guys. All right. So, Woman in Movement tells the story of Maime Till-Mobely and her fight for justice over her son, Emmett Till, after his brutal death in the Jim Crow South, Mississippi. Now, bear with me because watching this show really had me thinking, like I said, I'm going to try to keep it as uplifting as possible. I'm going to try not to sound really sad, but it was a lot to grab, so I'll tell you that. I watched it in 2 days. I didn't really have a lot to do. I finished my schoolwork, first time in forever. So, yeah, guys, your girl crammed a lot. At the start of each episode, there's a warning that it may cause some emotional, unsettling feelings due to what is portrayed in current events. Like, that's literally a summary of the warning you get at the beginning of each episode. And at first, I'm just like, okay, what are we about to get into? Like, you know, this show, it's not a new show, but it's still relatively new. It's only been out for a year. It came out in January of 2022 on ABC. And the first episode is titled Mother and Son. And I think the eighth episode, no. I think it's only 6 episodes long. So the fifth episode is titled Mothers and Sons. And yeah, the basis of this show really, tells how much this mother loved her son and how she believed her son, and she knew justice needed to prevail, as he was just a little boy. He was just a child. And not to really shit on myself, but I do shit on mother and son relationships sometimes because I'm biased. I'm a daughter. I'm not a son. I'm a daughter. I don't know what goes through a son and his mother in that relationship, and nor do I have kids. I don't have a son. I would love one day, but I don't have a son, so I don't know what it's like to be a mother to a son. So I don't get either point of views, but I did learn something while watching this show, and I knew it at the end of this series as well, is that Maime Till-Mobely loved her son. You guys, she loved her son without a doubt. She loved her son. And in the first episode, the first couple of minutes, it shows his birth and how it was a very traumatic birth. And, people are always I don't know what the word, like he was a against the odds type of kid. People were like, oh, he needs help, he needs this, he needs that. When he was 5, he had a battle with polio, which left him with a stutter for the rest of his life. You know, and I don't know. Am I still gonna crap on mother and son relationships? You damn Skippy. Why? Because I'm just that's just who I am, and I can't not be who I am, because then I'm just being fake, and nobody likes a fake biatch. So yeah, but watching this show and seeing the news headlines of another black man or a black boy murdered, killed, just those really how do I say this? These really sad makes your gut like twist, like damn, what if that was my brother, what if that was my friend, my son, my husband. It really forces you to be in those people's shoes, but they're imaginary because you can't even fathom what they're going through. And watching this show, I didn't like full out bawl, but tears were going down my eyes, guys. Tears were definitely going down my eyes. And no human being can understand the death of a child or even a loved one, especially when it's a brutal one and it's so uncalled for. It's so untimely. And I know the saying, God gonna call you home when it's time, but sometimes it's just like, really, really. Hold on, I actually didn't put my phone on do not disturb, so let me do that real quick. Ding, done. It just really makes you think. And watching this show, eh, oh my god, watching the show was really something. Emmett Till's body was damn near unrecognizable, and his mother chose to show her community, the world, what was done to her son, and that something needed to change. Something needed to change. To get her son's body back from Mississippi to Chicago, because Emmett Till was visiting Mississippi. He was visiting family at the time, his great uncle Moses Wright, and a week later, while into his vacation, that's what they called it in the show, his vacation, he was brutally, yeah. Um, they try to bury it. They didn't want it to come to light. The sheriff, whose name I really, even though I read it like 5 million times, I did not bother writing it down or mentioning it on my podcast because he was a stereotypical fat guy, southerner sheriff who's like, read my town, read my law. So I did not care to write his name down. If you want to go look him up, by all means, you can go do that, but I'm just no thank you. He ordered Emmett Till's great uncle Moses Wright to bury that body, like right here, right now, after he was found, like bury it right now. It's not going to Chicago. It's not going anywhere. We don't need no press. We don't need no rah rah rah. Like they didn't want none of that because they're trying to cover it up. It's the 1950s. It was still the Jim Crow era in the South, and they didn't want nobody in their business, and they didn't need anybody in their business. So they were really, really trying to bury it. Emmett Till was missing for 3 days. 3 days, y'all. Um, on August 28th. I'm gonna say August 28th. Y'all know I'm bad sometimes. It was between August 25th, August 28th is when his body was found. Also when he went missing, and let me tell you guys something, right? Here's my understandings of Emmett Till before watching this. Emmett Till, quote unquote, whistled at a white woman. Some white man ain't like that, and they lynched him. That was that was that was my basis knowledge of Emmett Till. Here's what I learned, right? Like I said, he was visiting family. He was with his cousins and some of their friends at a market. And the lady, Carolyn Bryant is her name. He, I'm not gonna lie. I don't even want to say what happened because I still don't understand what happened. But I guess some pass or whatever was exchanged, and she felt uncomfortable. She didn't like it. One of his friends or cousins came into the store and got him out. and she came storming out the store, went to the car, grabbed a pistol, and they phew, that's universal. That's generational. You take off. You know what I mean? And that's what they did. They left and they never looked back at it. They never thought about it. And like any old thing, especially in a small southern town, people gonna talk, and that's what people was doing. And when the lady's husband found out about this, he was kind of very unsettled about it. However, here's what I got from the show. The husband was unsettled by what happened. The husband's name, by the way, was Roy Bryant. But his brother, half brother, I think he is. And my God, if you see the pictures, where is the half? Where is the half? Narnia, like, oh my God. J.W. Milam, he seemed more unsettled and bothered by what had happened with his sister-in-law. So they decided they were gonna teach Emmett a lesson. So at 2:30, around 2:30 in the morning, they all mosey on down over to Moses' right property. He was a preacher. And they started banging on his door, doing all this hooting and hollering. And they asked for Emmett. They're like, we want the boy from Chicago who's doing all that talking. And they come into the preacher's house. Moses, right? Keep up with me. I'm gonna start saying preacher now. And the white man are like, where's the boy? And that's his family. He really doesn't want to give it up, but he knows the consequences, as many black people back then knew, especially during the Jim Crow era. Just mum's the word. You know what I mean? Just zip, don't say nothing. And yeah, that was trifling. That happened in the first episode, by the way. The first episode unpacks a lot, guys. It unpacks a lot. But they barge in, and eventually the preacher shows him to the bedroom where Emmett Till was sleeping, and they tell him to wake up, get dressed. They didn't really tell him to get dressed. He put on like a pair of pants, and then he left. And that was the last time Moses Wright and his wife and all the other bystanders, yeah, bystanders. I think only one of the cousins or two of the cousins were up at the time. One had heard something but didn't really seen it. The other one was in the other bed with Emmett, as quoted by Moses in the show. He had a full house that night. A lot of his great nephews and his sons were there. So yeah, and that was the last time he saw Emmett Till. And right here's where I become like Nancy Drew up in this bitch, because they drag Emmett outside and they I'm so sad. And that's so unprofessional of me. I'm really sorry. They drag Emmett outside after taking him out of Moses' house, and they walk up to the truck and they're like, "Is this the boy?" And you hear a voice that say, "Yeah, that's him," or whatever, and they throw him in the truck, right? And let me tell y'all something. That scene in the first episode baffled me. When I tell you that thing was bothering me, it was just bothering me, guys. And in the last episode, they kind of show more. They showed too much, because I had to sit up, y'all. I was like, oh my God. It's a lot to process. It's a lot. Phew. Yeah. So they eventually drag him, and he's not found. So eventually the next day happens, and they're like, we gotta go looking for him. And apparently it was very common, after a while, certain black persons missing. It's like, all right, now let's go looking for them. And the outcome, a good chunk of the time, is a dead body or a burnt body, And they were really hoping and praying that Emmett would come back, and the preacher had he was trying to like state an argument, like, just give him a whipping, he won't ever do it again, yada yada yada. And unfortunately that didn't happen. So 3 days after that ungodly night, his body turned up in the Tallahatchie River. I don't know how to say that. First, I thought it was Tallahassee, and I was like, they was in Florida, and but they wasn't. They was. This whole thing takes place in Mississippi, but I ain't. I thought I ain't hear right. You know me. I was like, oh, they in Tallahassee? Nah, honey, Tallahatchie. The Tallahatchie River. And you know what? I'm probably not saying that right because apparently I say everything wrong. Moving on. And they found his body, and his body was so unrecognizable due to all the beatings and the bloating because he was dead for days, and the decomposition of his body. They called the preacher Moses, and he identified his body due to a ring that he had on his finger because he was so, I hate to say this, but he was so disfigured that they didn't know. Um, so long story short, that's where this whole thing started. The sheriffs, they found the body, and he was like, I want that body buried. I don't want to hear nothing. I don't want to hear no hooting and hollering. You bury that body, and that's it. Don't defy me, boy. Like that's how they talk. And it's like, oh my God. It's cute. It's nice to say yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. But when you just talk to somebody like, yeah, you go ahead and do this, boy, it's like, oh my God. I just find that it just bothers me. My skin's itching. I got a rash now. It just bothers me. I didn't like it. It was just terrible. But anywho, the death of Emmett Till helped spark the civil rights movement. All of the events of Emmett Till took place between August and September, October-ish of 1955, and the Montgomery bus riots, or boycotts. Riots, boycotts, whatever you prefer, took place in November of that year. I'm getting better. And yeah, he helped spark the movement. So and that's when I really realized, because civil rights movements like the 1950s are actually not that long ago. They're really, really and truly not that long ago. People be like, oh my God, 2000 is so, oh my God, 23 years. Cry me a river. Talk about 60 years. That's not that long ago. There are still many, and I mean many people who lived and witnessed what went on during the civil rights movement that still walk around today. You know? And you just gotta, you know? Anyways, there was a trial, and they may have not won the trial, but the fact that there was even a trial, that an arrest was made for these two hoodlums, it gave them hope. It gave not only Maime Till-Mobely hope, it gave African Americans, Black Americans everywhere at that time hope that, wow, justice just might prevail. But then again, this is America, so justice did not prevail. And although, hope can be seen as a curse and a blessing, yes, a 14-year-old boy died, but he had to die, unfortunately, for people to wake up and see what is wrong. What is wrong? And during one scene during the trial, I think Moses Wright had went up to testify, and he puts his hand on the Bible, and the Bible says colored. And I'm like, people really think they're gonna get some disease from Black people? Like, oh my God, you're gonna get a disease from somebody who doesn't have pale skin? Oh my God, are you serious? I'm grateful and thankful for everything all these wonderful civil rights activists done back then and even now. But I know I could not survive, because it's just disgusting the way they treat people, why, the reasons behind it. It was just terrible. It's just so terrible. You know? Mamie continued to fight for not only her son, but for African Americans everywhere until her death in 2003. And at the end of the show, you see her at this memorial, and it has the list of all the civil rights movements and stuff like that. And you see her put her hand over her son's name, whose name, by the way, guys, don't you ever forget it, is Emmett Lewis Till. Emmett Lewis Till. Don't forget it. That 14-year-old boy died an injustice death where nobody served any time for the horrific crime they committed. Horrific. Ugh. Mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Now, I want to also shine a little light on how that the fact that this documentary also talked about some things that aren't highlighted as much, and I found quite interesting. Emmett Till's father, who he barely knew, and he was not a great husband to Mamie Till. He was actually a very abusive, and they separated. And he eventually went to the army. It was like back then between like, okay, it's either jail or the army, and so he chose the army, and he died overseas in Italy, right? And she, at the time of his death, she asked for more information because that they gave her wasn't enough. They just said, "Oh, your husband died overseas due to unwillfully misconduct." I know that is. I know that is. And she know what that is. And she wanted more information. And unfortunately, she could not get that information. So during the height of the whole Till thing, after the unfortunate murder trial, you had the kidnapping trial. And I think it was like a day or 2 days before the trial was set. Um, one of the senators, can't remember his name, don't care, released this information that Emmett Till's father, Louis Till, was executed by hanging for allegedly raping two women and murdering another while serving overseas in Italy. And I was like, damn, they played dirty back then just like they do now. And it was very, you know, it through everything I looked at, it is still unknown whether or not Louis Till actually committed the crimes he was tried for. Hence why I said allegedly. However, the men that were acquitted for the murder of Emmett Till, though, Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam, I don't know how to say his last name and I don't care, would later go on to sell the story of how they kidnapped and brutally tortured and killed a boy for $4,000. $4,000. That is equivalent to 36,000 US dollars today, here in 2023. $4,000. And they admitted that they did indeed torture and kill this 14-year-old boy. They wholeheartedly admitted it. And in the last episode of the show, you see them sitting there telling the points. And it's like, that is disgusting. It's disgusting. Um, I'm sorry. People portray them as celebrities, and they sold a story because people wanted to hear about. Some people like this. There are people who like this. There are people who want to know the truth. It was bad and good. It's like, thank you for being truthful, but screw you because a mother had to bury her 14-year-old son. Like, what? It's just terrible. And even his wife, Carol Bryant, who made the accusation that Emmett Till had whistled at her and all these other extras, bull, blase, squaze, went on the record to say that the claims against Emmett Till that led to his murder were also untrue. And by the way, I just don't know if you guys want to feel the same kind of like holy moly macaroni that I'm feeling. Try not to cuss. She's still alive. She's 89 years old or 86. She's in her late 80s. She's still alive. She was 23 when this incident happened. She's still alive. And they refused to try her. And you know what? You know what? She should be tried. At first I was like, why would she be tried? She didn't, she's not an accessory to the murder. But it's like, who the hell knows? Somebody had to identify that that was the boy. Maybe it was her. If she wasn't, over here saying like, yeah, somebody did this to me, this and that. And granted, she didn't want to tell her husband. And it's like, you knew why you didn't want to tell your husband. She didn't want to tell her husband. And the other girl, Millam's wife, also didn't want to tell her husband because they knew how they would act. And that is so terrible. Should this lady be tried with something? Yes. Yes, she should. And because of Double Jeopardy, they sold this magazine in 1956. They sold this story. In 1956, they sold this story to a magazine named Looked. The trial took place in 1955. Less than a year later, they admitted what they did. And because of Double Jeopardy, they weren't tried ever again. They died. They dead. Oh, they long dead. But nobody ever served time or faced serious consequences for what happened after that one fatal night in Money, Mississippi. That's just terrible. That's terrible. And if there's just one thing I could leave y'all with is that this still happens to this day. Oh yeah. And we're all aware of that. We're all very much aware of that. Now this isn't a political podcast, but you know what? I'm a human freaking being, and I know if my son was like that, if my brother, like that's just so sad. And if you choose to watch this, watch it at your own leisure because it is very, very sad. And they eventually, I didn't think they would, but they show his body. They show his body. They show the beatings. And, it's just not it, y'all. It's not it. But I promise that I was going to stay happy and uplifting. So I did some other things to not shy away from Woman in Movement, which is on Hulu, by the way. Please, if you choose to watch it, watch it at your own lenience, okay? That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say. I'm here for the review, okay? Not the views. They're not paying me to say this. Frankly, nobody's paying me to say this. As the last episode of Black History Month, I went and I rewatched Beyonce's Homecoming this past weekend because that film, her performance, everything about it is so iconic. She shined a bigger and brighter light on HBCUs, which is a huge part of Black history in the past, present, and futures. I wish I could go to an HBCU. I feel like, HBCUs just have so much culture inspired. They just got seasoning, y'all. They got seasoning from the drum line to the dancers. They just got so much season in them, y'all, and it's just so pretty. And rewatching that whole show just made me feel just a little bit better. Just a little bit better. Another great show I watched this past week was The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. Now I have been meaning to watch the whole entire show, but I've been watching it like sporadically over the month of February because it came out on February 1st. And I haven't been doing a good job, guys. But I was never going to review it. However, let me tell you why I'm bringing light to it. The final episode 10, is titled Juneteenth. Holla at you, girl. It made me aware that the world is changing because when I was a kid, nobody was teaching you Black history lessons in shows. What? And Proud Family does a good job of being inclusive to all races and identities. And I find that very intriguing. And when you look back at old shows, it's like, oh, I can see it now. Oh, this, and that. And it's like, but it wasn't like put out there. It's like, oh, I see it now. But you didn't see it back then. That's the whole point. And I wouldn't mind, my kid learning things on TV because sometimes the TV be educating you more than the teachers do. And, it's not really always their fault, but it was a really, really good episode. It talked briefly about the meaning of Juneteenth and the history about it. Like I said, I wasn't taught that growing up. I can't remember the first time I heard about Juneteenth, but I know ever since then it's been embedded in my head. So, yeah. But seeing something like that on TV in this day and age makes me go, we gonna be all right, okay. There were so many great shows that came out for the month of February for Black History Month, and I didn't get to review each and every one of them. I didn't get to tell you guys all about them, but there were a lot. And I'm really proud to be a black woman in America, and I'm proud of who I am, and I'm even more prouder of who I'm gonna be, the type of woman I want to be. And when I make it, cause trust, I will. Not as a podcaster. That's not my dream. My dream is to be a graphic designer. I just like podcasting is just like my hobby. Now that I can't crochet as much, podcasting is my new hobby. But like one day when I make it, I'm gonna look back and be like, you remember when you was just like a little girl and you just every day you woke up and you just had a different dream, and there's like the stigma that people never make it out of their hometown. It's like technically, even now at 21, I made it out of Broward. And Broward has this thing, Broward's the ghetto. I'm not from the ghetto. I probably say that. And if people wanted to call me whitewashed, people want to say, oh my God, you're this, or that. I only had one white friend growing up. The rest of my friends were of some type of Caribbean descent. Their parents were immigrants just like mine, and I'm proud of who I am. And, frankly, the month of February has taught me you need to stop giving a fuck. Here's what I mean about that. You gotta stop giving a puck, because people are gonna talk and they're gonna say what they want. There's so many things people say about me on a daily basis, and I don't let it get to me. But you know what? The things people say to me, it's not even the worst. People have been talking down on me my whole life, and you know what I still do? I talk shit right back. You know why? Because my mom raised a strong girl who eventually grew up to be a woman. So yeah, I'm gonna keep doing what I do. And you gotta be proud of yourself, and you gotta stand on your own 10 toes. If you got 9, stand on your 9 toes. If you got 5, stand on your 5 toes. If you're in a wheelchair, stand on them wheels, girl. In order to exhibit change, you gotta stay motivated, persistent. You gotta want it too. You gotta want it badly also, because the moment you put your head down, that opportunity is gone, and we don't get many of that. We truly and truly do not get many of that. Not just as a black person, but as a woman. So to all my ladies out there, I'm showing love to y'all next month because March starts next week. Which means your girl's about to be 22. And March is Women's History Month, so I'm giving y'all life, entertainment, and some knowledge coming March. March is my month, and yes, it's because I was born in March, and it's also Pisces season, which started on February 19th, which was yesterday. But March is a really awesome month. And somebody said there was a couple of months ago, it was like the rare months to be born in. And the months it had listed, I'm like, I know about 20 million people born in that month. But there's not a lot of people born in March. I'm a Pisces like Rihanna. I'm just a March one, not a February one. I just had to get that out there. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not going to lie to y'all. I have no idea what next week's episode is about. I've been thinking about this episode for a really long time, because next week is March 1st. This is when the next episode drops, which is literally my birthday. And I'm like, I'm going to talk about whatever I want, but I'm going to think about it. I'm going to take some days and think about it. And I'm going to tell y'all what I'm going to talk about. But know that for the 31 days that are in March, we're talking about 31 influential women. So be prepared for that. As always, thank you guys for tuning in and listening to the Review for Fuse podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe down below. And holla at your girl by showing some love, by commenting as well. And you guys, just because February is coming to an end doesn't mean your girl's going to stop showing love to Black History Month. I am and will always be unapologetically black. Happy listening, y'all.